Good morning, class. We move on to the next lesson. Fiber to fabric. Some of you know the meaning of the word fiber and fabric. Some of you don't. Let us first see what fiber means. Fiber means threads. Fabric, many of you might know cloth. So, fiber to fabric. Have you seen a torn cloth? A cloth which has been cut. What do you find? You find some loose threads, right? So this tells you that fabric or cloth is made up of many threads. Let us see how. Let us first learn the definitions. Fiber. Fiber is a single hair-like structure resembling a thin thread. Fabric is, as I said earlier, cloth, which in turn is made up of yarn. So, fiber makes the yarn. Many very small fibers make the yarn or the thread. The threads are made into interlocked, made into patterns and woven into fabric or cloth. Let us learn in detail where do these fibers come from. Types of fibers. There are basically two types of fibers: natural fibers and synthetic fibers. Natural fibers, as the name tells you, are obtained from plants and animals. Cotton, jute, linen are some of the plant fibers, whereas wool and silk are some of the animal fibers. Synthetic fibers, on the other hand, are man-made from chemicals, basically petroleum products. Rayon, nylon, polyester are some of the synthetic fibers. Here is a picture which shows some common plant fibers. Can you see the cotton plant, the jute, the coir, which is actually coming from the coconut, the hemp and the flax? Animal fibers you can see wool from goat as well as sheep, and the silk fibers from the silkworm. Let us learn in detail about the cotton. Cotton is a plant fiber. Cotton plants have been grown since 7,000 years and they have given us the very first cloth. Do you know what man used to wear? You must have read this in your earlier classes. Early humans wore leaves, bark, etc. But when they started to cultivate cotton, they shifted to cotton clothes. Where is this cotton fiber present? Cotton fiber is present on the seed and we call this as the boll. When the boll are matured or the cotton fruit is matured, it bursts open. At this stage, it is hand-picked or it is collected through the machines. First, we need to separate the fiber from the seed. This process is called as ginning. Next, the cotton is cleaned and combed. The fibers are then twisted and drawn into yarn or thread. A takli or a charkha can be used for this purpose. But now, these days, we use the spinning machines and this process is called as the spinning. Next comes making of the cloth. When we use two sets of yarns or threads on a machine called the loom to make a cloth, we call this process as weaving. And the person who does this is the weaver. Looms can be hand operated. Then we call it as the hand loom. But if it is operated with the help of electricity, we call it as the power loom. Cotton is grown in many parts of western and southern India because they have black or alluvial soil. So this is how you get the cotton. In the next slide, I will show you how we can get cotton cloth from the fiber. Can you see the cotton bolls? Next step is ginning, separating of the fiber from the seed. The next step is making the yarn, that is called as spinning. Next, two set of yarns are used for weaving, and the cloth is then used to make lot of articles like shirts, trousers, saris, etc. The next most important fiber is the jute. Jute is again a plant fiber. It is also the cheapest fiber, but unlike cotton, it is not soft. India, in fact, is the largest producer of jute. It needs a warm and humid climate. In India, jute is grown in the states of West Bengal, Bihar, and Assam. How do we get the jute? The jute plant is grown. Can you see the jute plant there in the picture? Yeah. Once it reaches up to a certain height, the jute plant are cut, tied into bundles, and then soaked in the water. This process of soaking the jute plants is called as retting. After soaking for about 10 to 12 days, the outer layer of the jute plant gets all soft and rotten, and the inner fibers come out. Once it is come out, it is then brushed and then dried in the sun and then sent over to factories. In the jute factories, lot of wonderful products from jute like gunny bags, carpets, and a lot of wonderful items are made. The next fiber that we are going to take is wool. Wool is an animal fiber. Where do we get the wool from? In winters, you would have worn sweaters, caps, gloves in order to protect yourself from the cold. All these sweaters, shawls, etc. are made up of wool. Wool is in fact hair of some animals like goat, sheep, etc. The wool is a protein fiber. The wool grows on sheep, goats, etc. And these animals are kept in huge farms in order to get the wool. Once the wool is grown, the wool is cut, and this process is called as shearing. Earlier it used to be done from hands, but now we have got machines for the purpose of shearing. Shearing does not cause any pain to the animal, just like cutting hair does not cause us any pain. After shearing, the wool is then thoroughly washed, cleaned, and twisted into woolen yarns. These woolen yarns is then knitted, not woven, into woolen fabrics. What is knitting? How is it different from weaving? In knitting, only one yarn is used. You must have seen your mother or your aunts knitting with two needles. They use a single yarn, a single thread is used. That is the difference between knitting and weaving. The wool fiber is fluffy, it retains air, and thus it keeps us warm. Then here is a picture which shows animals which actually give us wool. The sheep, the goat, camel, the yak, and alpaca. The next important fiber is silk. It is again an animal fiber which we get from the cocoons of the silkworm. In your earlier classes, you must have read the life cycle of a butterfly. The silkworm also undergoes a similar life cycle. The adult worm lays eggs. From the eggs hatch the larva or the caterpillar, which feeds on the mulberry leaves and then forms a cocoon. The cocoon is the one which actually gives us silk. Many people grow these cocoons in their farms to get silk. The process of rearing silkworms in order to get silk is called as sericulture. These cocoons are collected, put in hot boiling water, and the worms inside get killed. And then silk is made from the cocoon. The silk is white in color, but The silk fabrics that your mother wears, the silk saris that your mother wears are of different colors. So how do we get it? Simple. It is dyed into bright colors, colored. These silk yarns are then woven on looms to make beautiful silk saris, dhotis and cloths. Next is the category of synthetic fibers. They are man-made fibers obtained from petroleum. So how do they get it? It is the raw material for the synthetic fibers is very similar to plastic. It is melted and it is passed through very tiny pores in order to get the synthetic fibers. What are the advantages of synthetic fibers? The synthetic fibers are actually very strong and they do not get damaged easily and they are very cheap. This is why synthetic fibers are these days catching up. Now let us do a comparison between the natural fibers and the synthetic fibers. The natural fibers, as I told earlier, are obtained from plants and animals, whereas the synthetic fibers are man-made. The natural fibers are expensive and the most expensive being the silk. Synthetic fibers, on the other hand, are cheap. Natural fibers are biodegradable. They can easily rot. Synthetic fibers are non-biodegradable, hence not environment friendly. Natural fibers get easily damaged by insects. The synthetic fibers, however, are strong and long-lasting. Natural fibers absorb sweat, hence are very good for hot climate like India. Synthetic fibers, on the other hand, do not absorb sweat. So, they are good to use in cold countries. Natural fibers do not catch fire easily. On the other hand, synthetic fibers catch fire very easily. Can you now understand why your mother told you not to wear the synthetic dress while bursting crackers during Diwali? So, to conclude, natural fibers and synthetic fibers are the two types of fibers which are used to make cloth. There are some advantages of natural fibers and some disadvantages. Similarly, synthetic fibers have their own advantages and disadvantages. That is all for today, children. I'm sending you the key points to this lesson. Please note it down in your classwork. The remaining classwork will be given in the next class. Thank you.